A very good evening to all our participants and welcome back once again. Good evening to Dr. Kinraj and all my colleagues who are attending the webinar today. And as we all know, we would be talking and be presenting a topic which is exploring oneself through political leadership, and this will be presented by Dr. Kinraj Jangid. He is an associate professor and director at the Center of Israel Studies, which is under Jangid School of International Affairs. And now I request Dr. Jangid to start with his presentation.
Hi, thank you, Ridhiman and Tanushri, for taking care of the logistics here. And very good evening to most of the invisible audience. I look forward to have a conversation with you. This whole new world of the virtual communication is something that's coming very handy. Uh, so this talk is to understand the role of political leadership and the importance of understanding political leadership is to understand the political science, to understand politics, to understand how political changes happen, how political realities are shaped the way they are. So the importance of looking at political leadership is in the fact that uh, it will enhance the understanding of politics, whether it is about India's politics or international politics. Whichever politics you are interested in, uh, it's usually okay. I think I'm getting.
Guys, please hang on. I think there's some technical glitch. Yeah, it's logged off. Yeah, please logged in again. So we'll start in a couple of seconds.
Yeah, something happened there.
Yes, sir. Please continue.
Tanushri, can you let me have my screen up? Okay. Mm, okay. Sorry if we had a technical problem. Now I hope all of you can see the screen. So
Yes, sir. We can see it.
the point that I was trying to start with is to explore yourself, explore ourselves through the political leadership, and the effort is to understand political science. Effort is to understand political realities that we live with, or the political changes that people make, and in all of it, leadership seems to be the central element, whether it is a national politics or international politics. So this is a short presentation about what's the role of political leadership, how does political leadership matter in the life of the individual and in the collective life of the society. Should we take political leaders seriously? What happens when we don't take them seriously? And are the political leaders born? Uh, is it something, a gift that one is born with, or is it something that people can? Uh, okay, so very first, and a simple proposition is this: that to lead is human, and to be led is also human. Uh, Both of these realities have been there in the human history, whether you look at it the times before the nation state, the times before the idea of the modern political life. So, in the larger political evolution of the human history, there always seems to be somebody who leads the group. whether it is a family head or a village head or the tribal head or the community head. There is somebody who is taking command. There is somebody who takes charge of things. Uh, we will look at the processes. Does somebody do it by himself or herself, or is it something that people put somebody there? So, in democracy like India, you will say that the leader of India is the one who is elected by the people of India because it's a democracy. You wouldn't say this in the case of Iran or North Korea or China, where people don't have a choice, a full choice, a full democratic choice to choose somebody to be their leader and lead them, have the command, and then hold those people accountable for whatever they do. So it can happen in both ways, but it's a fact. It's a political fact that societies do live. Wherever you look at in the world, you will find that societies and human beings, whether they choose or whether they don't choose, they seem to be led by somebody. They seem to be headed by somebody, or more democratically, they seem to be represented by somebody. And that somebody in political science is considered a political leader. So, what I want you to, in a way, understand is that leader or leading or to lead is a very human act. It is like human beings make families, they go for procreation, they go for societies, they go for markets. These are all natural human actions. And one of those things is also a leadership. Not only they lead, they are also very willing to be led. As I said, people choose to be led by a particular leader for a particular thing that they think is important, and they trust that person to achieve for themselves. So it's a very, very human act, and this act is very primitive even before the political life started in the human history. Uh, where the democracy started late in the 18th century, but even before democracy, people did live with the leaders and commanders. As you can see, a poster here. Now, those of you, and I think many of you who went to schools recently, will remember this kind of a poster. Indian leaders. You have lots of faces that you will relate with and know about them. Leadership and human life are tied together. They do exist next to each other, and they do interdependent. They are interdependent upon each other. The one survives upon the other, or one needs the other in order to survive. All individuals who are born in a society, they are destined to grow under or next to some kind of a leadership. Let's look at the example of leadership in general, not look at political leadership, but leadership can be of many different kinds. Uh, let's look at very first encounter with a leader for a human being. I would say, and you can all relate with it. Family leaders. You have parents who usually lead the decision making in the family. Usually the elders, maybe father, mother, grandparents, tauji, you know, whoever has the commanding or the authority or the privilege will be the leader. Those are family leaders. And from marriage to what kind of education children should have, what college you should go to, should you not study law, should you not study political science, should you not study MBA. All such decisions you will see are often made. by the family leaders for the human beings. I'm sure right now, uh, many of your family leaders are making those decisions for you. And you must be also negotiating with them as much as you can, what you like, what you want to do, where you want to go. So there is an interaction between a leadership and you as an individual. I work in a university, and the head of the university or the academic in charge of the university, vice chancellor, is the leader that I, let's say, relate with. It's the leader that I look forward to. It's the leader who gives direction to the university. So, in whatever capacity we are, whether we are, young adults out of these schools and going to college, whether we are professors and teachers, we all have some sort of a leadership that we engage with. Then you have another form of leadership that's called social and community leaders. Who are the social leaders? Who are the community leaders? So if you look at the poster next to you, in the screen, you will see the picture of Mother Teresa. It's at the bottom on the right side. Now, Mother Teresa is not a political leader, but Mother Teresa is a leader, and she's a social leader. She's devoted to a social cause. She was devoted to a social cause, and that's her identity. Then you have Swami Vivekanand somewhere in the second row on the left side, who is a not a political leader, but certainly a social and a community leader. People can say he's a religious Hindu leader. Fair enough. You can widen his category, but just understand that people like Vivekanand or Mother Teresa uh, or Tagore in the picture are not political leaders, but they do play role of leaders in their respective times or in their respective social and community groups. Then you have religious leaders. Now, religious leaders in India are plenty. We don't call them religious leaders, we call them gurus. So these days you have many actually. You have Baba Ramdev, who's actually a political leader at times. Then you have Shri Ravi Shankar, who's also sometimes a political leader because he mediates on the political matters. I don't know how many of you know this, but the organization, The Art of Living, is a multinational organization, and the head of it is a religious, spiritual person, and that person plays many kind of roles. Just recently, he wanted to mediate between the Hindus and the Muslims to resolve the conflict in Ayodhya. So, a very traditional and a religious society like India actually lives next to many religious leaders. In the past, it had many. In the present, it has also many. And for a very foreseeable future, I assume India will have a lot of religious leaders to live with. Then another category of people in the leadership are the corporate leaders. So you have these leadership in the corporate world, in the business. Actually, uh, it's a it's a skill, it's a training. There are a lot of training schools. They teach leadership, how to be a good leader, how to be a team leader, how to be a good boss. Uh, they also lead a certain amount of people for a particular, objective, and they also play the role of leaders in their defined areas or in their defined objectives. So I just wanted you to think of leadership as a very wide category of things for a human life. And here I'm just going to now get deeper into political leadership. Uh, okay. So this is another poster, Bharat ke Neta, leaders of India, political leaders of India. If we will look at this picture, you will find that most of them, actually all of them, are political leaders. They all served the Indian state in the capacity of prime ministers and presidents. However, He seems to be the tallest leader of India when it comes to study the political leadership. So inevitably, the the modern life that we all live, human beings, we live within the defined territory of a state. So we all, let's say, I assume all of you belong to the Indian territory and Indian passport. So our political reality is to live through the political heads of the Indian state. And we pass through our human lives in and around these political leaders. Now, sometimes we want certain leaders and they serve the nation or the state. Sometimes we don't want certain political leaders, but they still get elected because India is a democracy. So even without your single vote and your individual vote, India can be headed by a leader who is not your favorite, who is not your, let's say, political or an ideological preference. But we all go through this political leadership in whatever wanted or unwanted political preferences. The last poster in this picture is Narendra Modi at the bottom on your right. And this is a very interesting, you know, further point to extend my presentation. Now, in political science, in the traditional discipline of understanding what is political and what is not political, what is a state, and how the political decisions are made, there are certain key debates and certain issues that are important when it comes to political leadership. And I just want you to look at these words very carefully. I These are all very known words. I'm sure you know all of them. You might have read them before. You might actually have worked on any of them before. But just understand that these are very critical questions when it comes to political leadership in the discipline of political science. So, leaders and leadership. That leaders are individual actors, and leadership is actually a process. Actually believes that uh, individual actors, let's say Narendra Modi now, or Indira Gandhi once upon a time in India's past, they were individuals, but they were part of certain processes with which they presented a certain kind of leadership. Then you have democrats and dictators. Uh, Political leaders can be democrats and can also be dictators. This is a very critical question in many of the democracies today. Uh, as I said, in the political life of the world, you don't have all the states democratically running. However, even in the democratically elected societies and political systems, you have times when democratically elected leaders can suddenly turn into dictators, meaning they can end the political legitimate processes and suspend the electoral politics and hold on to power. So Indira Gandhi is a good example of this uh, kind of an issue when it comes to India, where she suspends all Indian political processes and she actually becomes a dictator. Then you have causes and consequences. That there are certain causes with which a certain amount of leadership is created. So, uh, if you go back to a very recent time in India, the year 2014, when Narendra Modi becomes Prime Minister of India, you will realize that a great amount of support for him came from anti-corruption and a very tremendous amount of lack of trust in the Indian political class. And he emerges as a very powerful alternator. So there are certain kind of causes that can throw up a certain kind of a leader. A certain kind of a leadership can have consequences. So people like Narendra Modi or Indira Gandhi or in the past Nehru, These are very powerful individuals. So they don't only serve their times like other prime ministers of India. They actually create tremendous political and social changes for the rest of the people to follow. So you can't compare Narendra Modi with somebody, let's say, I.K. Gujral. I don't know how many of you know that I.K. Gujral was also a prime minister of India. Or you wouldn't compare Narendra Modi with, actually Dev Gowda, because all prime ministers of India don't have the same political legacy. There are certain political, powers. Even when they served in the same office, they fundamentally carried a certain amount of consequences to follow. So causes and consequences are also very important matters to understand. Then you have actors and context, that every political leader is an actor fundamentally, and that actor can only act in the given context. There is a very famous saying by, it's not a saying, it's a sentence by Karl Marx, who says about political realities that men, usually men and women, they don't make their own history as they wish to or as they feel free to. They do act, but they only act in the given context. So there are certain realities that we are born in. In India, you can consider many things. Caste is a given reality. I was born in a very small caste in Rajasthan. And much of my education or my family's position was defined because of that particular lower caste. And the first reality that a small caste had to engage is with the upper caste. So there are certain roles that leaders play, but those roles are defined in the given context. Another example is women. So if one is born as a woman in India, then the context of doing anything is very different than the men. If I can take you back to the screen, then look at the screen that I used in the beginning. Uh, to lead is human, to be led is human. You see a picture of a woman leading the group. Well, in political leadership, you don't have many women. It's usually a very manly, masculine world. And I'll come to that towards the end. Why is it so manly and a masculine thing? But just to get back to this point, that all actors, all political actors, all political leaders have a context with which they get to do what they do. Then you have personal qualities and luck. Well, this is also very important. Yes, luck matters. Uh, uh, the joke about India and India's political leaders these days is that Narendra Modi doesn't have to fight anything else because he got Rahul Gandhi to compete with. Now, it's a very, very overdone joke, but understand that if a political leader doesn't face any opposition, it works as a great advantage. It can work as a very, very, uh, given opportunity. However, leaders are just not out of luck and the fortune. They do have certain qualities that make them different than the rest of the political leaders. So it's true that all political leaders, whether you will analyze them in the past or in the present, you will analyze them with their certain personal qualities that they are individually built with. Next, every political leader is to be judged with his or her success and failure. This is inevitable. All political leaders go through the judgment. And in democracies, that judgment is actually the day people vote, because that's the day they say, well, you were very good and you were talking to many things, but you failed. And hence, I choose not to choose you anymore, my leader. So all political leaders leave behind a legacy, and their legacies are usually debated for a long time. What are their successes? What are their failures? What do we remember them for? What should we not remember them for? So one of the very important and a tall political leader in India, who's often referred as Nehru. What are the merits and demerits of Nehru's political leadership? Did he lead India in a remarkable manner, or did he lead India in a very uh, contested manner, as let's say somebody from BJP or RSS would question it? Just understand this, that all political leaders go through this judgment, and the judgment can come even after 50 years. So it doesn't have to be in the electoral voting time. It can come even after 50, 60, 70 years. Okay. The last thing about the debate and issues of a political leadership, is it an art or a science? Now, some people conceive that political leaders are gifted individuals who are born with extraordinary qualities. There are legends about them, there are myths about them, and they become this very supernatural, extra human creatures. I personally don't think that's the case. I don't think talent is a gift that one is born with. I don't think a certain amount of inbuilt charisma is somebody gifted right from the first day of his life. What I think important in political leaders is their growth and their inspirations. So very individual, ordinary human beings. Gandhi was very ordinary. He was born in very ordinary circumstances. He was not born in a with some thunder and lights. But he becomes suddenly a remarkable individual who transforms himself with the things that he goes through. Meaning, he converts his own personal experiences into a larger story, and then he wants to show the larger story to the rest of the world. So yes, people like Gandhi or Nehru or people will say Modi, they are charismatic leaders. They are very popular leaders. They are very mass leaders, and they become so because of their personal qualities and assets. But those assets and qualities are earned or uh, reflected in them because of their time and context. So I personally don't think that it's something that is an art and one is gifted with it and one is not gifted with it. If you read the biographies and autobiographies of any, if you read the autobiography of Nehru, uh, there isn't a good biography of Modi yet. But if you read the leaders and their biographies, you will realize that they were very ordinary human beings, and there is something very transformative in the way they lived and collected their own experiences. So it's a very human thing. It's not extra or a divine or a godly, uh, gift. I just wanted to make that point. Okay. Now, I want you to take a second here. Not a second, actually. You should take half a minute. You see a blank screen and a question. It's actually not a question, it's just asking recent ideas of political leadership in India. We are not talking about the past, we are talking about right now. So think, think for a minute. How would you remember what kind of a leader is admired in India? What is the image? What kind of qualities are being considered? If you need to write 5 qualities of a good political leader, what would you write those 5 qualities are? Okay, think for half a minute, and then I move the screen. Okay, uh, if you have thought your 5 words, then just remember them. And if you have a pen and a paper, better you write them. You see the image? I don't know if you're laughing or smiling or feeling you have been, very correct about what you thought and what you wrote. Uh, in recent years, and it's not about 2014. It goes beyond 2014 to a certain extent. But yes, this image, this man, a powerful, uh, you know, aggressive, intentful, very purpose-oriented walk. This is the image of a political leader. The key, what kind of a leader there should be. That's the image. Let's look at the keywords. This is from the current political conversations in India about political leadership. So the first thing that you will hear or gather is Vikash Purus. Now, Vikash Purus is, hold on, my screen just disappeared on me. Now, Vikash Purus is just a Hindi word for a man meant for development. This is something that happened in 2014. Don't ask about this anymore. People think Vikas has disappeared and Purush is there. So it depends on your political perspective. But yes, it's true that from the year 2008-10 onwards, when India was really, really progressing and having a good growth rate, uh, development became a very, and even today, development is very important political objective. Everybody is for development. You wouldn't find disagreements on that. People can disagree on what way we should develop, but development should be the motto of everything that we do. Yes, agreed. Everybody will go for it. Second, is strong. The political leader should be a strong leader. Decisive. The political leader should be capable of taking hard, difficult decisions. Can you remember demonetization? Popular. Yes, it's one of the important things in political leadership. So political leaders, they don't have to be. So Manmohan Singh wasn't a popular leader. He never won an election in his life. But Manmohan Singh could become India's prime minister for 10 years. So you can be the head, you can be the representative of the Indian people even without being popular, because you have some other qualities, or because you belong to a party and that party has a majority. So whichever way you look at many of the India's insignificant names in the prime minister's list, you wouldn't confuse the leaders like Modi or Indira Gandhi or Nehru or Rajiv Gandhi to a certain extent, who are very popular, or Atal Bihari Vajpayee. These are very popular leaders. So popularity seems to be a very important idea of a political leadership for Indian people. Articulate and communication, very important. I'm sure you heard the Prime Minister today at 10 o'clock. One of the remarkable things that Narendra Modi is known for is his articulation and ability to communicate. That something works as an advantage to be a leader in India. And of course, you have to be corruption free in India. Uh, Corruption is still a very, very loaded problem. It's a loaded problem because nobody knows how to take care of it. Nobody knows what causes corruption in India. But people seem to be still obsessed with the problem of corruption. So yes, one of the important things, so people in Delhi, let's say, will vote for Arvind Kejriwal because they seem to be faithful about him being anti-corrupt and an anti-corruption leader. Okay, next image, a little more colorful and animated, I would say. So what are the social and cultural obsessions in India about political leaders? So political leadership in India goes beyond traditional democratic societies. So if you look at the democratic societies of America, or you know, any European societies, or even a place like Israel, you have political leadership and all those qualities: strong, decisive, development, anti-corruption. These are universal qualities that any political leader would need. But in India, the political leadership gets a bit more colorful. And I think what constitutes India's political leadership is the India's social and a cultural way of thinking things. So Indians are very cultural people. Let's say, make a general statement. And we have this tendency to go through a lot of legends that we have. So one of the things that has happened to the political leadership is this heroism, this ascetic image that you see Narendra Modi. And he's a very performative leader. So he knows how to perform. He will know when to perform and what to perform. So this is an image that was captured all over India and actually internationally when the last election happened in the year 2019, and he was waiting for the counting to come out. So in between the last day of the polling and the counting, he had 24 hours, and he goes to these mountains in Himalaya, and he sits in a saffron robe, and this image makes him a very popular Hindu leader. So you see that a person like Narendra Modi, he's not only a political leader, he's somehow a cultural leader as well. He plays a role of a religious leader as well. And he combines these two in a very successful manner. You can judge him either way. And I think that's a job in political science to understand all these processes as carefully as you can and as minutely as you can. But look at the two pictures. You have Narendra Modi sitting in a monk-like a position. Now he's not a monk, but he's presenting an image of a monk, a sadhu, a sevak, a renunciator. Everybody knows his love for clothes, so he doesn't have actually a real ascetic dhoti to wear, but he does. So he wouldn't. If you see Gandhi, Gandhi is ascetic. He has a one single piece of cloth, but I'm sure wardrobe of Narendra Modi must be huge. I mean, imagine the collection of his jackets and his kurtas. So understand the paradox of this, right? So he can carry himself very lavishly and in a very glamorous way. And the other day he can just sit in a shawl and present himself to be a monk. So he plays a lot, but it tells you that it succeeds in India because India looks at the political leaders way beyond their political roles. We make too much fuss out of them and we make too much of them. So there is a heroism and there is a bhakti. So the another picture that you see on the right is a man. I don't know which part of India this image was taken, but it was a very popular picture when one of his followers tattooed him on his back. And this became one of the famous images of Narendra Modi and his followers. So understand that political leaders play huge roles in the not only in the political lives of a society like India, but they become cultural symbols, they become social symbols, they become ideals, and they tend to play more roles than they should be playing those roles. So this is about it. I I would like to now hear your questions or comments, and I will get back to Riddhiman and Tanushri. Thank you very much again, once again, for listening to this, and I hope you got to listen to me uninterrupted so far.
Thank you so much, sir. And it was simple yet very informative session. And I like the choice of pictures that you used. It keeps us glued to your presentation. And yeah, I now request all the participants to put in your questions. We have around 15 minutes. You can take questions from there. Okay, Dr. Kivraj, first question is political leadership. How is it different from what we had pre-democracy era, before 1947 and after 1947? How it is different?
Sorry, Riddhiman, I didn't hear you well. How political leadership is different
Leadership
now?
is different now as compared to before 1947, before democracy.
I see. Mm, I will. Okay, it's a very good question. Thank you. The problem of a good question is that it demands a longer answer. Okay, I will keep it as short as possible. I would personally say this: if you play the image, and I think the best image is to put Gandhi's photo next to Narendra Modi, and I think you will understand this if you just imagine both of them. So Narendra Modi once said that he has a chest of a 56-inch. Now he's a very masculine, macho man, you know, and he makes politics a very far world for women to come into, because for him you have to have a 56-inch of a chest to be a leader. So he's ridiculous with his idea of politics. However, he's a strong leader. He's a popular leader. And more importantly, he's trusted by the people of India. Look at the amount of trust that people showed him in last 3 weeks. He said clap, people clapped. Bajao thali, people did that. And it's fascinating to watch people follow. And I think in a crisis like what we are today, it's important to have a leader who people can trust. Okay, so it's a very important relationship between us and our leader. However, since we are trying to understand the idea of political leadership, it has completely transformed. So from a very uh, you know, selfless service and a socialist, humble, spiritual way of life that Gandhi represented and Nehru represented. Remember, Nehru was also very stylish and a man of his own, clothes and choices. However, his politics was played in a much socialist, democratic manner. So yes, the leadership qualities in India are transformed. That's what I said. That recent ideas of political leader in India are very interesting words: development, corruption, free Wi-Fi. But Gandhi will say untouchability. Uh, Gandhi will say a certain amount of selfless seva, or Nehru will say a very egalitarian society. So these are the values that, let's say, leaders of the time at that time, let's say, went for, and now the leaders have a very different image of what should they be presenting themselves. You can also play this question in a different way. Maybe it's a good thing to think that the people of India have also changed. That the people of India in the 60s and the 50s had a particular choice, and they went for these leaders. And now the society, of course, has changed. So maybe our own preferences have changed. Eventually, Narendra Modi is what people of India want for, right? In a democratically played politics. So it's a that's why I said it's a good question, but it's also a very complicated asking. Uh, where do these political qualities come from? Do they come from a leader, or do they come from the society itself? Yes, Ridhima, you can.
Thank you, sir. Second question is, do you think political leadership and social leadership overlap each other nowadays?
It only does when certain individuals are there. So you wouldn't consider Manmohan Singh as a social leader at all. He's a asocial person. He's the least social person. The guy doesn't know how to communicate even to his neighbor. Forget the nation. Uh, then you have a person like I.K. Gujral. Uh, so all political leaders don't become social leaders. But yes, there are some political leaders who tend to go there because they are too powerful individuals to be restricted to the everyday political uh, job that they are supposed to do. Just understand, in 2014, when Modi became the prime minister, there was a very clear mandate. that this country needs corruption-free India and a developed India. And what he does, he starts Man Ki Baat. And if you listen to his Man Ki Baat, he's like a guru, he's like a therapist. He tells how to pass the exams, he tells how to do your life, priorities. So he's like a counselor. He's like almost a, a figure who touches non-political subjects in Man Ki Baat. So you see that it depends on who the political leader you are looking at. A person like Gandhi had to become a social leader because Gandhi's understanding was that politics is what the society is. So if I want a political change, I need to start that change socially. So he needed to work on, let's say, caste in order to make a democracy. That unless and until people socially don't change, they will not treat each other equal just because they are legally equal. So as a lower caste and an upper caste, as a lower caste in Rajasthan, I was equal to any Rajput, legally speaking, or the day when I used to vote. However, it doesn't matter that we are legally equal. It's a one person, one vote value. No, social life is very different. So Gandhi became a social reformer because he understood politics in a greater understanding than, let's say, a person like Narendra Modi would do. Okay.
All right, sir. Thank you. Just to add on to this question, in India, Modi as a leader is considered widespread as his bhakti. What emotions do you think connects or taps into with his audience or with the public of India?
Well, I think let's the way I look at it, it's a very interesting and a healthy uh, thing for the society to have heroes. Heroes who can solve all their problems. Heroes who will bring what they need. Heroes they can trust. Heroes who will have superpowers. Heroes who will have these divine qualities. Okay. So yes, there is a certain amount of social hope that people come into this heroism, right? So hero worshipping is something that's common among all societies, not only Indian society. It's true that the Indian society will go more devotional about it. So people will express their devotion to Modi in a very very uh, uh, blind and a obsessive following. So there wouldn't be any kind of a critical questioning about his role. So people can't even question his role with the demonetization. See, this is a political leader by definition should be accountable for what he does or she does. People like Narendra Modi go beyond this testing. They earn something bigger. They almost become, more than any political leader. And that's why these leaders are less democratic and more authoritarian because they assume more power in their own hands. So the emotions are endless in India. People worship him. People blindly believe in whatever he says. That can be sometimes dangerous for a democracy because you have to be very critical, at least for democracy purpose. Uh, but in one word, I can say it's a faith rather than see faith is a non-critical function. When I'm faithful of my religion, I don't apply my mind to it, right? So when people become faithful of the political leaders, it's not a healthy transition because politics is not a matter of faith. Politics is a matter of alertness. Politics is a matter of knowing. Politics is a matter of reworking on the political choices. Politics is a matter of everyday decisions. It has nothing to do with God, it has nothing to do with the divinity, and it has nothing to do with what I feel. It's about a greater good of the people. So yes, it's always a delicate thing. It can go wrong, and it can serve a great amount of purpose. So when a society is in a crisis like this, Modi is a great source of stability because he can stabilize the society. The majority will believe in him and in his capacities and his intention, and hence things can remain calm. If you look around America has a deep crisis of leadership. They don't have a leader who they can trust. Trump is not a trusted leader in America. He might be elected, but he's not somebody people can trust. He doesn't have a legitimacy. So, so it works both ways for the society. Emotions can take you down, and emotions can stabilize you when you need them.
Thank you so much, Professor. My next question is, in India, we see, on one hand, we talk about development and we vote for development. On the other hand, we have caste-based voting as well. So, it's a complex situation in India. So, how do you think we can balance this in future, or we can move towards more of development to voting uh, in near future, in your opinion and expertise?
I'm very happy about this question because this is a question that I often get to listen in my classes at Jindal University when I teach when I used to teach political science to the law students. Uh, you can't have development politics in India. You will have to have caste politics in India. There is no way you can bypass it. And the simple answer is Indian politics is casteist because Indian society is casteist.
All right, sir. Thank you so much for that.
So, so it's a. I'm sorry, it's a short answer, but yes, because we are so casteist culturally and socially, we do the same thing when we do the politics. How can we not do caste in our politics when we are so casteist in everyday life? And it's not only a small village in Rajasthan. Look at the Sunday's matrimonial pages in all English newspapers. You have matrimonials published caste-wise. Somebody is looking for an Agarwal or a Mathur or a Bhandari or a whatever caste names you can find. So even English speaking urban Indians who look for a bride and a groom, they look for a bride and a groom by the help of their caste, or they go for a caste. So this is why Gandhi is correct. You can't have a casteless politics without having a casteless society. You have to have a social reform first, then have a development politics. Okay, yeah, that's
Thank
I
you,
think.
Professor. Thank you. My next question is, in world politics, we have seen, political leadership taking up the adaptive leadership style. In India, do you think, or do you do you know somebody or some leader who is taking this adaptive leadership style?
Sorry, I don't understand adaptive leadership style. I mean, I'm really not getting that term right. What is the like adaptive leadership style? I don't. I don't get it. I mean, I don't understand what is the meaning of this particular leadership or a style of leadership.
Okay, I would
Maybe.
request, Moksha, who has put in the question, if you could just
Yeah,
elaborate a little bit about what you mean by adaptive, and
yeah.
we will take the question later. I move on
Okay.
to the next question. Uh, Recently after the general election, this is a question which everybody would want to know about. Is about Rahul Gandhi becoming irrelevant after the general election. So, any thoughts on this, sir?
He's not a leader, so why to bother? I think I think he has been used quite well by BJP and their propagandist machinery. But the guy is incapable of any kind of a leadership. So let's forget it. I don't think he he presents any kind of a option when it comes to, see, this is when you see, this is the relevance of this talk. When we understand political leadership in a society and in a political space like India, we understand the challenging role it has. Okay, and you will see that Rahul Gandhi doesn't have anything to offer. He didn't have anything to offer in the past either. I remember in 2010, I was still a student in JNU finishing my PhD, and he came for a public talk when Manmohan Singh was the prime minister for the second time, and he just spoke in very generic terms. He doesn't address any of the problem in a meaningful manner or in a direct manner. So unfortunately, in India, there aren't many options when it comes to political leadership. Okay, so for a foreseeable future, the style and the model of Narendra Modi is going to rule. You know, uh, he has created a particular kind of an image, and any upcoming leader will have to create another bigger image than what Narendra Modi has created in order to create an alternative, or just do this job as good as Narendra Modi can do, then might become an alternative. So let's forget this Rahul Gandhi business. It's
Thank you
better
so much for your answer.
as soon as we forget it.
Thank you, sir. My next question is, how do you see Rajiv Dixit, who was the spokesperson of Bharat Swabhiman Andolan? He spoke against the wrong policies of the government and fought against the MNCs as a political leader. Uh, you know, how do you see him in terms of political leadership in India?
Well, that's a very good question. Rajiv Dixit, I was, I used to listen to his cassettes. I was in a small village near Jodhpur, and I remember year 1997 or 1998 when he came to Jodhpur to give a talk against the multinational MNCs like Coca-Cola and big companies. And he was very provocative and charismatic speaker. And he was he so I grew up in a way, I grew up listening to his cassettes. I had a collection of those 20 cassettes of his on number of things. Uh, and he died a very mysterious death, unfortunately. Uh, but he launched a movement which existed before him. It still exists in many other forms. It's called Swadeshi. How one should not use the multinational company and their products, and be more careful of their growing over influence in the Indian market. To me, he now when I understand, let's say, politics better, to me he's a reformer. He's a at best a social reformer. He wants to reform society with regard to what it consumes and what it should not consume. So he doesn't represent a political leadership, or he doesn't aspire to be a political leader. He works for the society to choose things more carefully. So he's a social reformer. It's like Vinoba Bhave, right? Who goes for a land reform in India for the greater good of the landless farmers. So Vinoba Bhave doesn't become a leader, or Jayaprakash Narayan in India, who is a social leader. So these are social reformers who work on a particular problem that they think is the main problem of the society.
Thank you, sir. Next question is, in Indian politics, we have always seen, uh, in leadership, when we have, people like Advani, Vajpayee. we have Patel, Nehru, we have Amit Shah and Modi. These kind of similar, people or combination of people, they come up, and there is always a crisis in leadership in terms of opposition or within the party that comes up. In democracy, it becomes a little worrisome for the public that they don't have any alternative to vote for. Uh, what is your thought on this kind of a crisis, and how do you think we can overcome and we can have more leaders into the democratic system wherein we have we have more choices to vote for?
Well, this is very, very good thing to think about. The question is very important, and I'll tell you this. Uh, in the Corona crisis right now, a lot of people have written that there is a global crisis of leaders. In a crisis like this, we need very good leaders who can lead the societies through painful decisions, yet very convincingly. So yes, uh, societies and human beings, when they go through a crisis, what they miss the most is a good commander, is a good leader. And unfortunately, it's not only the sad fate of democracy, it seems to be a global crisis when it comes to good leaders. You don't have leaders. You don't have visionary leaders who can transform the world. Uh, I think one way to address this problem is to properly understand the role of political leaders. Teach our young students, something that the Jindal School of International Affairs is going to do with the help of political science honors program. I personally think that leadership is a training. It's a skill. As I said in the presentation, it's not a gift. It's a skill that you can earn. So one of the ways in I can think addressing this problem is to create young, aware students who will go into political leadership, who will first understand what can political leadership mean for a society and a state and a global world at large, and in what all ways one can be a political leader. So yes, I think societies like India and democracies like India have to invest a lot more in creating a knowledge about political leaders, creating training and a skill about political leaders, and studying well the political leaders India had. So if we understand the political legacies of all the leaders that we think have impacted India, we will understand their complexities and will have better leaders than them. It's a process that societies can work upon. So this is the way I can think this problem can be addressed. I don't think societies can sit and wait for a leader to happen. It's not a messiah who will suddenly will get born in somebody's house. Okay, if society is in a crisis, let's work and create good leaders, political leaders. A society cannot sit and wait for a leader to come and save it.
Thank you so much, Professor. I didn't realize that we have already completed the time that we had,
Yeah.
and we have covered most of the questions. Uh, I quickly take, probably this is a question that I want to ask you on behalf of all our applicants who have been applying for the BA Political Science program. Is that, the Vice Chancellor, Dean, and the Board of Faculty members at Jindal School of International Affairs, they mentioned that BA Political Science has started in JSIA with the aim of giving ammunition to our students so that they can, go up the ladder and get into the political system either in India or globally. Uh, your take on this, how do you see, JSIA giving the right material or right ammunition to our students?
Well, Number of ways, and I'll just exemplify one. One of the ways JSIA's uniqueness in this degree program of political science is to include subject like political leadership as a course. As I said, this is a very important subject that a political sciences student should go through. And politics is a good profession. Politics is a good vocation. Politics is a good workplace for young Indians to go for. And I think one of the ways this unique degree program will help the young students is to train them first by creating a knowledge among them about the history of political leadership, the political evolution of the political leadership, and number of things that, let's say, I briefly mentioned in the presentation. It will be done in a semester long course. And to have another kind of courses like one on advertisement and political campaign, or propaganda and a political campaign, political communication. Now, political communication is an extremely important element of any political life. To study Indian political behavior in the electoral politics. So these are the subjects which are not traditionally taught in any of the other degree programs in India, whether in a private or a public university. Uh, they usually go through the political philosophy and political theory and the Western political thought more so. But JSIA will teach real Indian political life to the students so that they know it inside out, and then they can have a choice to practice it, even step into those roles. uh, and in practical work experience, there will be, there would be opportunities created to work with certain amount of members of parliaments, bureaucrats, executive ministers, where through their internship or through their summer programs, they will see how everyday political life is processed in Indian political system. It's very important to understand the political realities and political facts. So for me, political leadership is a political fact. Electoral voting is, political communication is, advertisement and propaganda is, social media is, and by including all of these as essential courses to this program, JSIA is creating this unique opportunity for the students who will come to take it wherever they want to take it after it.
Thank you so much. So I think it explains a lot of our intent towards the program, and I'm sure we will be able to provide good students to you to teach, and at the same time, we expect our students to work right now. They have a lot to do. Some students who have already applied, registered. I would request to follow our webinars and also attend the webinars, come up with questions, and we would always get back to you. I have a very important announcement to make to all the participants. I would be sending a formal invite as well. However, I want to take this opportunity to invite you to the launch of BA Honors Political Science. We are doing it on 18th of April, which is this Saturday, and I would be sending you a formal invite. It's happening online, so I would request your parents to join as well. If you have any relatives or your friends who wants to be a part of the launch program, wherein we have dignitaries from the political field, we have a faculty, we have a dean and infrastructure who will be a part of this launch. So thank you so much, Dr. Kunraj. Thank you all the participants. Thank you my
Thank
colleagues
you.
who have been in this webinar, and as I said, we will come up with such interesting topics again. And I really appreciate that you've taken out the time to spend on this webinar. Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.